Alright, in this video I want to talk about atheists. And this is generally what you're going to get from atheists. It's basically fluff. There's nothing to it. You see, I put this video up talking about Christian atheism because they're saying that atheism is at the core of Christianity. And I felt like countering his dislike. That's why you see a like on there. I usually don't like my videos, but I thought that was kind of funny. But anyway, ha ha ha, right? Um, this guy comments here, and I'm talking about from the point of view of a Christian, atheism doesn't make any sense. You can't tie atheism into Christianity in the sense that this guy was saying that when Jesus died on the cross, that God canceled himself out and yada yada yada. None of the stuff made sense if you actually read the Bible. So this guy was just kind of speculating on a little bit of that he knows and imagining what he wants to believe, right? He's creating his own religion. Basically what I was saying. And this guy says there's one flaw in your argument. There's no evidence of a soul separate from the brain. This is a scientific fact. I like how he's just so confident to say these things, that these are facts, right? But my video wasn't to prove there's a soul. My point of view is the video is that if you believe the Bible, because you're a Bible-believing Christian, this makes no sense. You can't have Christian atheism. I mean, you can create it if you want, but it's stupid. It's just, having fun and making up your own religion is all it is. And he's like, spirituality is a concept. I don't know what the hell he means by that. You have to demonstrate a soul that is part of the brain, and you'll have to demonstrate that spirits exist in order to have an actual argument. Assertions are no evidence. Well, see, the thing is that the point of view of the guy is saying that God exists, but God died. So I don't have to prove these things. From the point of view of the guy that I'm talking about, is that God existed but died at the cross and canceled himself out, and that God is now just love, and where you find love is where you find God. And I was showing how this is ridiculous. So I'm not here trying to first prove the soul and spirits, right? So what the hell, right? And then he goes, oh, and a minor detail, there's also no evidence for God, any God. So I was kind of like, what you're saying here, I get where he's going here, but the point I'm making here is that the video has a certain topic, and he's jumping to something else. I'm talking about a man who's saying that God existed, but that he canceled himself out at the cross so that God no longer exists. Therefore, he's a Christian atheist. And I'm saying that is not backed up biblically if you're a Bible-believing Christian. So what you're going on about here is side subjects. We can talk about these things, but like I said, side subject, and especially here, this wasn't a video proving God. This was disproving the compatibility of Christianity and atheism. So I just had to do that. I had to tell him, wrong, I'm taking the viewpoint. Basically what I said. I'll leave that here if you want to read that, but I add here, there is evidence for God, scientific evidence. Science proves there's an existence for God, and I had my first video on this channel proves that. So if you're checking this out and you want scientific evidence to prove that God exists, check out the first video I posted on this channel. And this guy checked it out, and he did not disprove anything that I brought up, and he did not bring anything to counter it, is what I'm going to get into momentarily as I jump over to this, because he decided to go check it out. But you can see the next thing he does is you can see here, I didn't do anything to insult him at all. But this is just how atheists are, because they don't really have science backing them. They don't have truth backing them. They don't have logic, reason, and common sense backing them up. So they have to get you emotional so that they can get you all riled up, and just manipulate things with your emotions, right? So he just says, well, I've checked out your first video and it is the usual creationist apologetic BS platitudes. So, see, he just comes out starting with an insult. Like, he doesn't say, oh, this is false and this is why. He just says, oh, it's just creationist BS. That's just being dismissive and tossing it aside, right? He's like, I clearly opposed where you went wrong, and after I was halfway, it was obvious that whatever argument you were going to make, of course, it is just the usual garbage. So another insult. It is based on a multitude of fallacies and ignorance. But notice that he doesn't show the fallacies and what is the ignorance. Or is it deliberately misrepresentation and therefore pointless? So I did not watch any further. So you can see here, like I said, it's fluff. This first thing, he just calls it BS, but he doesn't explain himself. He calls it fallacies and garbage and pointless, but he doesn't clarify. He just says it. It's just empty claims. It's fluff. And that's what you get from atheists for the most part. Insults and fluff. And he says, for if you made an actual point in the second half, you can answer me in the comment section there. Conclusion, science does not prove God. So he didn't present any evidence to disprove me, and he didn't present any evidence to prove himself, yet he just makes this statement as if, it's true. And it's why you see a lot of those memes about arguing with an atheist is like arguing with a pigeon or playing chess with a pigeon. It's like playing chess with an atheist or whatever. No matter what evidence you bring forth, what moves you make, it doesn't matter because the atheist is just going to knock over the pieces, strut around like they won the argument, and just shit all over the place. And that's what you should expect from a talking monkey, right? Because they believe they're talking monkeys. They might get mad and say, no, an ape, which is funny because they don't even refer to themselves as man. They're like, they get upset and go, no, we're apes. And that's just hilarious. But anyway, I just point out what I just said. All you did was bring insults and no actual substance to work with, all opinion and no facts. Because like, what can I say to this? We're going to be like a child and say, nah, yaha, nah, yaha, nah, yaha, nah, yaha. I mean, come on, grow up. Really? This is what you choose to do with your time? But I was like, you know what, I'm going to see what he said over on this video. The science of the existence of God. Simple, straightforward stuff. Hope you check it out. Just keep it simple, stupid. That's the way to go. If you really grasp something, you can explain it simply. If you don't, you got to use a bunch of different words that people don't really know, and you talk forever. You just go on and on and on and on, and you add really nothing because you don't even know. You don't even grasp it. You don't comprehend. You can't explain it. That's why you just talk and 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 talk some more, right? Because you're just trying to get people bored and forget about the question and then just go to something else. It's just a stupid, annoying strategy that atheists use. But anyway, we're gonna go over this a little bit. So you can see, did he prove anything here? He's like, at 1640, quote, it takes intelligence to add information. This is where you can recognize the creationist apologetics. Yeah, so what's the point? I think he's talking about, at that point, I might have been talking about the yeast germ, where they actually added new information to the DNA. They actually took a piece of information from another germ to allow the yeast germ to digest something else, right? That stuck in the DNA, but it didn't stay. It actually benefited the yeast germ. It actually worked, but the yeast germ corrected it. Their DNA removed it, and all the yeast germ that they put this genetic modification into, it didn't pass on to the next generation. So it didn't really prove anything other than it took intelligence to actually add something useful to the genetics, that it doesn't just happen randomly, right? Because anything that randomly happens is always been actually a problem, like Down syndromes and gene duplications or protein duplications where people end up being crippled and having all kinds of deformities. But anyway, he says DNA is not information as creationists want you to believe. It is just chemical reactions to each other, no intelligence needed. It is information. And yeah, it doesn't actually say A, T, C, or G on the DNA. Yeah, so, but that's what they call it, because what they call the A is going to connect to this. I'm not sure which one, so we're just going to say AC is on one side of the RNA and TG is on the other. So A connects to T and C to G. It doesn't say that on the DNA. Yeah, of course not. But that's how they refer to it. Like your left hand doesn't have left hand written on it. That doesn't mean it's not your left hand. That's just how we recognize it. Oh, this is my left hand. This one's my right hand. Well, it's not written on it. So this is basically his argument. And you see what I mean about fluff. There was nothing here to disprove me or to prove him, right? He says DNA is not information, but it is. Because the cells will go and they'll read the ATCG, and based on that, they will create proteins and other things to build your body. It's information. Your dad gives you half of his DNA and your mom gives half of hers, and the cells take that information and build your body. Without that DNA, there's no directions on how to build your body. So why he's saying it is not information doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it's just a chemical reaction. Okay. Well, back that up. Just do a chemical reaction and create DNA, and then actually get cells to build from that DNA. Because you can't just randomly throw this ATCG together, because then the cells won't read it. You'll get deformities and Down syndrome and things like that. You actually need comprehensive information. So, basically, like I said, I'm basically saying what I put here. I have to tell them about how, like atheists, they use a lot of speculation and imagination. So, yeah, I have to keep saying that over and over, right? To really get it through to them that I think they know it, they just don't care. Like talking to an atheist, it gets to a point where you tell they don't give a shit. They don't care about what is truth. They don't care what is morally right. They just don't want there to be a God, and they want to do what they want, and they want to mess with Christians. That's it. But anyway, I'm going to jump to the last comment real quick because there's one that I want to focus on, but I want to get this one out of the way so that the one I focus on is actually the last one. So let's go here. He says at 1140, quote, there's no beneficial mutations ever. He's like, wrong. And see, this is kind of a misquote because I say that information in the DNA can be turned on, it can be turned off, it can be rearranged, scrambled, and changed, but no new information is ever added. So if you have 1,000 base pairs in your DNA, you can change that up, right? Like you have these many letters in this paragraph here, you can change the words up and move them around and yada, yada, yada. But in the DNA, you can't add any more, right? There's nothing in science, there's no scientific experiment that's repeatable to show new information being added naturally that actually benefits the creature and also passes on to the next generation. That's not science. That's speculation and imagination, right? But he just takes a little piece here and says there's no beneficial mutations. But like I said, if you think of a mutation as the DNA is turning things on or turning things off, or it's scrambling the information there, rearranging, or it's losing information, you think that's a mutation? Yes. And that's exactly what he brings up here. He says, wrong. Beneficial mutations generally code for new versions of proteins that help organisms adapt to their environment. If they increase an organism's chances of survival or reproduction, mutations are likely to become more common over time. There are several well-known examples of beneficial mutations. Notice he says this right here, and it's like, oh, that sounds smart and educated. But it's fluff, because he gives no examples. There are several well-known examples. Give one. I'll wait. And he gives one here, but it's not what you think it is. He says, one example, a unique mutation found in people in Lemone, a small town in Italy. The mutation protects them from developing arteriosclerosis, which is the dangerous buildup of fatty materials in blood vessels despite a high-fat diet. The individual in which this mutation first appeared has even been identified, and many of his descendants carry this gene. He's like, it took me 2 whole minutes to Google this. Okay. You look into it, right? No new information was added. But since he only took this little sliver of what I said, he tried to make me out to be a liar. But when you look into it, there was changes in the DNA, but nothing new added. The information that was already there changed. Nothing new was added. They still have the same amount of base pairs in their DNA. They still have the same amount of chromosomes. Nothing new was added. So how can you get a mutation that doesn't add anything and go from simple life that, let's say, has 100 base pairs in the DNA to animals that have billions of base pairs in the DNA if you can't add? Because science shows us that you can't add to the information already in a living organism. There's no example of that. None. And if there was, this fella or somebody else who sees this video would show that. And they won't find it, yet they won't give up their belief. That is just pure speculation and imagination. Now here, let's go on here. It says, and from 1850 on, it's just apologetic platitudes derived from the disinformation he has just given. So, okay, this is just an opinion. I'm not going to argue with the opinion, right? That's how you see it, okay. But he doesn't give an example, doesn't show how it's wrong, doesn't show how he's right. He just calls it apologetics and dismisses it. Well, I call this atheist apologetics, and it's just information, so I'm just going to ignore it. Right? Seems fair. He says there is no evidence, but it is just his misunderstanding of the science that makes him assert that conclusion. It is basic ignorance. Well, this is just atheist apologetics. He's not actually presenting any evidence to disprove me or to prove himself right. It's just atheist apologetics, derives from disinformation, so, right? And it's just like what I said here. It's like, you've given nothing to prove what you're saying. Show the evidence if there is any. Don't just claim it. They're simple, right? It's not going to get through. It's just not. It takes a miracle to get through to an atheist. So don't expect to. The only reason why I'm engaging this fella is because he's coming to me. He's checking out my videos. He's commenting to me. So I'm going to engage him. But I'm not going to go out and engage atheists. It seems pointless. So, if I just happen to get into that situation, I got the information to talk to him if I need be. But there's no point, because they're just going to get upset, reject what you say, and just start insulting you and all this stuff. And why deal with that? You know? But anyway, he says at 1440, quote, how in the hell do you get from 21 base pairs to billions in humans? Look up, for example, transposable elements on Wikipedia. Quote, it is not science. Laugh out loud. Your ignorance on the topic does not determine if something is scientific. But you see here, there's nothing. There's no scientific evidence of information being added to the DNA. You see, when you get stuff like this, transposable elements, there's scientists who will write about speculation and imagination about how it's possible for this to happen, right? And they'll go on and they'll write these really long books. They'll do these seminars talking about something like transposable elements. But what is lacking is actual science. Like repeatable, observable, peer-reviewable experiment, which does not exist for new information being added that's actually beneficial. None. If there was, you'd be able to show it. It's just speculation and imagination. Like I said, all imagination, not science. And I don't think they really get that. They think science is what some guy who says he's a scientist writes down. If he writes something down and he uses some big words and he makes like a book out of it, so he writes a whole shitload of nonsense, that's what's true. You don't need evidence. You just need to talk a lot and use scientific words and call yourself a scientist. That's science. Get it right. But anyway, let's get into a few more things that he said here. I think the last thing is the funniest. Well, my reply, I thought it was funny. But anyway, at 1930, he thinks that we should be able to create a biosphere to see life emerging from non-life. Yeah? What's your point? I mean, they try to say they created life from non-life with abiogenesis, and that was an environment that wasn't anything like Earth. It was supposed to be a harsh environment where they didn't create life or the building blocks for life. I've gotten into that. I think I might have gotten into this actual video. So if they could try to claim that through abiogenesis they created some building blocks for life, why can't you take an atmosphere that sustains life to create life? I mean, it's common sense. If you can take an uninhabitable planet and say that life just randomly generated on it somehow from non-living material, well then why can't you take an atmosphere full of living material and life and create new life? Why can't you do that? Because he makes it sound like an insult. Do you think you can create a biosphere to see if life emerged from non-life? Yeah. Why can't you? If it can happen in your imagination and speculation on a planet that would destroy any life that on it, then hey, you can do it with a biosphere that actually is able to sustain life. Makes sense. Makes more sense. But to him, that's nonsense. Well, they see things upside down and backwards. That's why a lot of times I reply to people with these upside down smiley face, because it's like, I am trying to see things the way you see it, because it's ridiculous. But anyway, he says, right, let's just conveniently forget that it took 4 billion years before the first cell, not organism, cell arrived. That's not science. Show me the repeatable scientific experiment that's peer reviewable and whatnot to prove this. How is this not just speculation and imagination? You just speculate that it happened. You imagine that it happened. It just had to have happened like this. That's not science. I don't think you know what science is, because you're using the word all wrong. But anyway, he says, come back to your biosphere after 2 billion years to check. Well, first, show it coming from non-living material in a planet that's uninhabitable. Then you can speculate about how long it would take on a biosphere that actually is able to sustain life, you know? But anyway. Oh, and let's not forget that he is now mocking the scientific method of experimenting because it does not fit his narrative. But his video opens with, "We need to do this the science way." So what is it? What the hell are you talking about? This is not a scientific method here at all. You speculate and imagine that in a world that can't sustain life, life just started from non-living material. And it happened over 4 billion years ago. Or it took 4 billion years to happen. How is that science? And where's the scientific method used here? Like, so I can just imagine that uh, the Earth used to be purple and it just started farting, and that's where everything came from. And it took about 3 trillion years of farting, Earth farts. I mean, that's science now. Can you not see how this is just fucking stupid? But anyway, uh, mocking the scientific method. If this is a scientific method, yes, I am mocking this. The scientific method is actually using repeatable experimentation and peer review so that somebody else can actually follow your steps, do the same experiment, and get the same conclusion. No, because see, I can speculate and imagine, and that's not what happened. Not what happened at all. Uh-uh. I saw something completely different in my imagination and speculation. And matter of fact, it took 32 seconds, not 4 billion years. It took 32 seconds. So he's wrong. My scientific method shows him wrong. But basically, I am basically saying what I put in my comments. He's like, "Yeah, you're actually mocking the scientific method by replacing experiment with your imagination," which is exactly what it is. It's just I imagine this science. uh, it's stupid. Quote, "We need to trust science. We need to trust what God's actually gave us. No bias at all." I never said I wasn't biased. I follow the truth. I follow the science. Science points to God. I believe in God. I don't try to make the science fit God. It just all happens to point him. I don't have to try to take a square peg and fit it in the round circle. I take that square peg and put it in the square. I want to say square circle, but the square hole. Take the round peg and put it in the circle hole. Right? That's what you do. That shows intelligence. Oh, the star peg? Well, it goes in the star-shaped hole. You know, boom, 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 boom. Easy, right? And it all fits. Hey, well, look at that. God is right all along. Ain't that something? You know, coming from your point of view, saying God doesn't exist, that's bias. That's why you imagine that it took 4 billion years for life to just somehow come from non-living material. That's not science. That's a bias. That's why you imagine and speculate these things. He says, there we go at 15 minutes. Basically, he's saying if you can't observe it, it's not science. But he claimed at the beginning that testing is scientific. So what is it? I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Testing would be like observing, right? I guess an example, like I'm going to test the light switch to see if the power's on. You flick it on, the light comes on, you flick it off, it turns off. All right, there's power's on, and I can turn it off and on by connecting and disconnecting the circuit. Yep, there's a test, I can observe it, it works. So how is testing separate from observing? Testing is just a way of observing. I don't get what he's trying to get at here. He says, because we can't test objects for age, for example, in many different ways. Because we can test objects. You can and you can't. You can test objects for age, but you see, you would actually have to have a control group, right? So you have to have some objects that you know the age of it, right? And if you know the age of it, you can test it and see what you get for an answer for the age, right? And in many of these dating methods, like the C14 dating and carbon dating and whatnot, I think the same kind of thing because it's carbon 14. And I think they use like halos and stuff in certain cases, in certain rocks. They've tested newly formed rock from volcanoes, and they've gotten ages of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, even millions of years on rocks that they know that are only 30 years old, right? So the testing shows that they're wrong. So you can't say, oh, these rocks of unknown age, of known age, it doesn't work. But it does work on rocks of unknown. We don't know how old it is, and we're going to test it on this method that doesn't work on rocks that we know the age of, and we're just going to assume it works. That's not science. That's just fucking stupid. You see, if you want to know something is able to test something to show that it's 1,000 years old, well, then you need to know that something is 1,000 years old before you test it to see if you get the results that say, yeah, it's 1,000 years old. So unless you can have an object that you know is 1,000,000 years old or 1,000,000,000 years old, you actually have to know it, right? That's your control group, your test group, and then test it to see if you get the 1,000,000,000 years old, the 1,000,000 years old, the 100,000 years old. If you get the right result, hey, this method works. Let's keep doing it. Let's get like 100 samples of each. See if we keep getting the same result. And then being like, hey, it works every time, then you know it works. But if you got rocks and you get that you know the age of it and it's wrong, there's no reason to start applying it to rocks where you don't know the age to. And that's basically what I tell me is like, if you can't observe it, it is not science because science is based on observation with experiments. And he asked this twice. Do you accept the theory of evolution? And it's like, it really? I mean, you didn't get from the video that I don't? There's no evidence for it. And I was like, there is no repeatable scientific experiment to prove evolution, so why would I believe it? And I was like, yeah, information in DNA changes and is lost, but it's never added, so there's no way to go from simple life to more complex life without adding. You can't do that. You can't go from 10 to 100 without adding, right? You can speculate, imagine it, but it's not science, and it's a bias. I don't know if this is the last one, but he says, have you ever observed life coming from non-life? This is, of course, just an argument from ignorance and a minor detail. No, it's not. Because if life can't come from something not living, then it has to come from something living. There's a source. There's a source of life that is alive. It's not a minor detail at all. And if you can't observe it happening, it's not science, it's imagination. There is a complete science division that is researching this very topic and made a lot of progress. But hey, creationists only misuse facts, they don't really follow the facts. It's actually the opposite going on, because show me life coming from something that's not alive. Show me the progress. You just say things. See, little atheists, it's just fluff. They're like, yeah, I imagine that the world just came out of nothing, and after 4 billion years, life just came out of non-life, and they're making progress to prove that. That's science. And there's no evidence, no experiments, no anything. It's just words. That's all it is. They just say things. They just say whatever they want, make up whatever they want. But I had to put hashtag not science, hashtag pseudoscience. But then again, on this one, he asked the same thing: do you accept the theory of evolution? And I just pasted and quoted what I put on the other question he asked. And then I think this is it. This is the last one, and I'll get to my reply. He goes, and there it is, another Christian who is nothing but a liar and a science denier. What am I lying about? You ask me if I accept the theory of evolution. I say no. What am I lying about? What science am I denying? You see how it's just making claims? It's like this guy's just saying I'm a witch. I was like, well, what evidence is there I'm a witch? You're a witch! That's his only evidence, is his opinion. That's all he got. He says it was obvious from the first video onward. And it's like, well, then why are you wasting your time? He's like, evolution is a scientific fact. Oh, because you said so, right? It's because you said it. I forgot, you're God. You whatever you say is true. Oh, my bad. Sorry about that. You don't have to present evidence. You don't need to. You're God. You just say what you want, bro. Sorry for questioning you and doubting you and going against you. I'm so foolish. The facts are described in the scientific theory of evolution. Share those facts. I mean, you capitalize scientific, so it must be scientific. It has to be, or else this wouldn't be capitalized right now. Because, it has to be. And it's highlighted, it's sticking out. So show those facts. He says, you are a fan of the scientific method, right? Oh, no, you're not. You're just pretending. You don't want to know. You just want to believe in your imaginary friend. No, I'm asking for the facts. Give me the facts, bro. Give me the facts. Give me the science behind this. Show me the repeatable experiments. I'm open. Come on, show me. Show me. But that's not going to happen, right? How can you not be embarrassed when you keep repeating your apologetic platitudes even when I just demonstrated that you are wrong? How is that possible? Demonstrated that I was wrong? What the hell? Is this guy serious? Does he actually believe what he's saying? What science did he present? Did I miss it? Because this is his last comment. What science did he present? What repeatable experiment did he present? I must have missed it, because he wouldn't lie, would he? He wouldn't just be BSing me, right? I mean, there's no way that this guy would do that. He's just such a great guy. I don't think he would do that. But anyway, no. This is definitely atheistic apologetics, so we can just dismiss that. It says, again, you say nothing is ever added when I just showed you that it is. I even told you what to look for, but of course you are just a creationist. You are asking for facts, but you don't want any. No, you showed me about the Italians, but nothing was added. You can't show me what was added. Go look at what they did, what they tested. Show me what was added. Nothing. Nothing was added. But anyway, so tell me, is this just ignorance? Is it arrogance, blind faith, or are you just a dishonest liar? And you see like all the accusing and pointing the fingers at me here. What am I lying about? What am I being dishonest about? What am I blind to here? I'm not just going by your word because you said it. Because I can't believe how serious these people are and how serious they take themselves, as their word is somehow meaningful. Like they don't have to present facts or science, experiment. They don't have to present anything. They just have to show up and talk, and you just accept it. That's arrogance. I said this is how it is. Believe me, because I am God. That's how they come across. But This is the last reply here. I just again talked to him about there's nothing ever added to the DNA, and he says that I lie and deny science, but he doesn't actually show what I have lied about or what I've denied. He's making these false claims, which shows his character. And then I tell him, unless you actually show scientific, repeatable experiments that prove me wrong, you are right. You are just what you believe you are, a talking monkey. You have shown all you do is get emotional when confronted with the truth you do not want to accept. Why don't you show me evolution right now and go from a monkey to an actual man before my eyes? You see, because a man would not act like this. A man is not dishonest and mocking and scoffing and wasting his time playing little games like this. That's something a shit-headed little child would do. And the funny thing is, some of these people are 30, 40, 50 years old you talk to, and some even older online. And they really show the fruit of what they believe. Because they believe that they are life that came from non-life, just some dirt that there's nothing to it, some rocks, and eventually they came from a monkey, so that they're just talking monkeys. Oh, talking apes. I'm sorry to offend you. Talking apes. And that's exactly what they act like. A bunch of poofling and apes. But that's the fruit of their belief. What do you expect, right? So anyway, thanks for watching and take care.